Mantsha Pheeha, who is a coach and trainer as well as a speaker. Thank you
for having us.
So it's very clear, Uguti, not every negative encounter that one person has really constitutes e-abuse. At which point do we then classify it as lena ke manje from now this is deemed emotional abuse? I think it's
okay, so we deem it abuse if there's a repetition and there's a pattern. So if you get angry high one and wa omanya high one, we do not classify it as abuse. But if it continues over and over and over again, that's when we then get to classify it as abuse. So it's the continuation and the repetition of the behavior and the pattern that classifies it as abuse.
And Refilwe, unlike physical abuse, lesikwazi ukuyibona kwesinye isikhathi ungayiyele chemist mhlawumbe uthole ointment thizeni, emotional abuse into engabonakali. How deep can those scars really be? Because what we understand from our counselors was really like studio, abantu besifazane or abantu besilisa never really heal from it.
Yes. So with emotional abuse, as you mentioned, that there are no physical scars to see or this person is wounded. So that's why they get triggered, you know, even though they leave the relationship, but how they get to encounter and experience and interact with other people, it then comes from that place of being hurt by their past relationship. So that's why most people are then encouraged to get help so that they deal with those internal wounds, you know, they deal with the mental and psychological harm that has been done by the experience that they have encountered in the past.
Moboga, do those types of people go for certain personalities, maybe and then they find themselves in these situations?
In most cases, the perpetrator wants someone that they can control, someone they can have power over. And in most cases, they can even go like, as what we read here, for someone who's bubbly and they want to break you down to the person who's just, you know, their puppet, basically, someone who is under their control, someone they can manipulate, someone they can break down to a point where you feel like, I'm nothing without this person. So they always go for a person where they feel, oh, okay, this one I can control. So it can be based on religion, as I was saying, you know, you know, you're supposed to act a certain way, you're supposed to have a certain posture. You know, so there's always something that they look for, that they know how it's easy to manipulate and control.
Are there certain personalities or certain types of people that are prone to attracting dysfunctional relationships?
I wouldn't say there isn't. It happens to everyone. The most bubbly person, you know, the loudest in the room can be emotionally abused. Even the most confident person can be emotionally abused and no one can see because they are outspoken. But when they get home, they're a different person. So there isn't really a personality type that's prone to experiencing abuse.
Yeah, and I think, Pastor, when you're more in touch with social spaces and we are born is there something lesiyenzayo thina siyimiphakathi ikakhulukazi masibuka izinto ezifana ne-toxicity and how they directly feed into izinto ezifana ne-emotional abuse esikhathini esiningi uma uzozwa umuntu athi hayi mana yikho into efana ne-emotional abuse consciously or unconsciously. So do we feed into a problem lesiyibonayo namhlanje on ama-dysfunctional relationships kanye ne-emotional abuse emiphakathini yethu?
So one of the things Jedi contributing towards this scourge is the silence. Most of us, Papa kuntlung udira this, Mama kuntlung. I'm not even talking about the time when it's your relationship. And the parents, there is some type of emotional abuse. They don't talk to each other. As children, you can see, there's something about this thing that's not right. The minute you tell someone, you tell a teacher, you tell a pastor, you tell another relative, what happens? The same people who are emotionally abusing each other. No, we don't do that. This is a family matter. Don't go and tell people. So we grow up, you grow up with this notion that these things that happen, they must not be told to other people. So when it happens to you, and when you are in a relationship, what is your immediate response? What did they teach me at home? So a lot of people, when they go through this, as I think the other pastor was speaking earlier, she was saying, the shame. Where does that shame come from? It comes from the fact that how bua, you are embarrassing us. How bua, you are showing people our weaknesses. Let's keep this amongst us. We will solve it as a family. And most times, it just stays forever.
Pastor ngokubona kwakho, do you think umphakathi hides this toxicity and we just sort of accept it as a norm?
So, we are evolving. We come from a place where it was hidden. We come from a place, if utlakonna as a pastor and you are telling me this is what's happening in your home, I try to help you hide it. But now I can tell you for sure, not in all circles, of course, but in some circles, there's actually activism where we are saying, we don't want to say lots of wonderful speeches because you killed yourself. I mean, you heard earlier you killed yourself or you killed someone, because the thing with emotional abuse is as much as you don't see its impact with your eyes, the stuff that people get driven to do, because you just couldn't take it anymore, was sniper one day, and then you killed someone or killed your children. We've seen incidences like that. I mean, one of my the ladies at our church, helper Yagare, took 2 small children and threw herself into the dam. What is it called? Hartebeespoort Dam. I think some of you may have seen it in the papers. And she didn't even know. When somebody's your helper, you live quite closely with them. She didn't even know helper una problem like this. Like the husband, and the husband says the person who threw herself, both children died, she died. And it's because by the time most of us wake up to what's happening, either to ourselves or to another person, a person has died and somebody else may say, to be honest, why?
And I think, Refilwe, you've alluded to Uguti, abuse is not just an event, it's a process that's also a build-up. There's a build-up in the lie partner in our corner, footna lie send our corner to the edge. Let's speak about the point where you should know Uguti mind just Uguti or at least seek help and speak to someone about it.
I think when you start seeing how you are losing yourself, and also when they start threatening you or threatening your loved ones, or they even start threatening the way you live. Most times emotional abuse, it's just to control how you live. So they want to then isolate you so that when it gets to the extreme, you have no one around you. So look at, why is this person isolating me? Look at the changes that this person is bringing within the household or within the relationship. Are they isolating you? Are they controlling who you spend time with, how you spend your time, how you socialize, who you interact with? That's where now it's getting to the extreme. That's where you should seek help. That's where something is definitely wrong, and also when you fear this person, or you cannot speak to this person, even if they do something, you are afraid to talk, or should I say this person might snap and yell at me. So now you have this fear, I cannot voice myself, or anything that I say is then not taken into regard. It's like, what are you saying? Why are you even saying this? So anything that you say is disregarded. So that's when you know, this is only going to get worse and you need to seek help.
Okay. Yazwake ukuthi ke impawu ziba khona ke, and you must always be on the lookout for lezo impawu, right?
Definitely. Veli masibuya etutolo, we further our conversation with our guest Ningasugi.
Nhleli nathi khona la ku Daily Thetha la ekhaya ku SABC1 Mzansi for sure. Siyaqhubeka ke ngenkulumo yethu namhlanje sikhuluma ngama relationships or ubudlelwano bu dysfunctional kuthiwa kuwona that feeds into kwesinye isikhathi ama relationships that can be emotionally abusive. Senjalo ke sine studio audience sethu that I want us to bring into this conversation. Let's come to this side. Mfethu sikubingela sikwamukele sizwe ukuthi wena ucabangani ngalo daba esikhuluma ngalo.
Amolene emakhaya igama lami ngusem. Ya kuba kwenzeka sometimes mawuthola umuntu omthandayo ne kube sometimes like uba ujongele ezinye izinto mhlawumbe kuzoyenzakala so kube kungazohamba ngendlela right yabo.
Yeah.
So sithi phansi nge gender based violence. Ngoba sibaningi ama heartbroken la ngaphandle so siyayinida ipeace.
All right. Okay, siza ngapha ke sizwe kwena.
Ngivusela Daily Thetha igama lami Qiniso Kunene ekseni mina nje bengathi comment yami la if ubona ngathi akukusebenteli mawuthandzana nemuntu kwentela nje into longasat understand vele nje uyekele uhlale ume inhlitiyo yakho icala iphole kucala ungabe solo dilimata ushona le nale.
Yeah. And uthole nesikhathi sokuhila lapho. At the back of that ithi ke sizwe nokuthi nitheni einkundleni zethu zokuxhumana. Let's just quickly pick up another social media post. Uthembi Molefe ku Facebook uthi the father of my child emotionally and physically abused me when I tried to open a case against him. He almost killed me and I was heavily pregnant. I miscarried because he always kicked me in my abdomen. Sure.
That's heavy. It's so unfortunate.
Sure.
No. I think it's time that we further our conversation with our guests. Both ladies, I'm going to pose this question to both of you. Do you think ukuthi childhood trauma plays a role in the partners that we subsequently end up picking? Does that inform the people we end up, I suppose, aligning with or picking to be the people that we spend our lives with?
So any event that affects you adversely and you don't deal with it will come up. I think Rifilo earlier spoke about triggers. The reason why something triggers you is because you left an open wound. Physical wounds are so easy to heal because you can see it entire fall. But when it's emotional, the onus is on you. You have to take responsibility. You have to take accountability. Just because you've gone through trauma does not give you the right to ill-treat me. Earlier, I think in the first segment when you were talking, you actually asked the question that if you don't know that you are emotionally abusing a person, does that absolve you? No, it doesn't. You are an adult now. So childhood trauma, you put it so well. So you know how throw the tantrums shop right. But now you are an adult, you want to throw tantrums in your relationship. That is unacceptable. So you can't use that, and which is what a lot of people do. The thing is, you don't know what happened to me. That's why I'm abusive. That cannot be an excuse. We have to be accountable. You do what adults do. You take accountability, you take responsibility.
Definitely.
And Clara, I'm keen to find out how did the experiences feed directly into our relationships after that encounter?
So I think now I know better to discuss how I feel. After I think even now I'm actually thinking friendship-wise, maybe church members and other people that are next to me. I think what I've learned a lot in this whole thing is that it's very much important to talk about how I feel, and it's very much important for me to tell you at the spot what I didn't like at that moment. It's either you fix it or you just leave it like that. But I think the most important thing is that I've learned, if there's something that I need to talk about, if I need to open up, if I need to discuss something with people, I have learned that it's very much important to do it, and I do it and I see it works for me. I have better relationships now with the people that are around me and with the people that I lead as well.
When did you realize, at what point did you realize ukuthi dysfunction can really ruin your life?
I realized when I started to, because when you are abused emotionally, the first thing or the first symptom that you will see is when you withdraw from people. So from me to started the withdrawal from people that I loved, from my colleagues, from my family, it showed me something was not okay with me. So when I started to fix all those things, like who withdraw, who to eat, for me to gain weight in gain, for me to fix all those things, there are symptoms, it helped me a lot.
Sister Pheeha, do you think voices of authority and Pakatinwe are doing enough to ensure that we curb this current, I'd call it a pandemic, really?
Yeah. As I mentioned earlier, that now people are more vocal. It's no longer like before where they're like, as Mosadi Tia, you know, you have to protect your home, or as Monna, you cannot cry or this at home. So now people are more vocal about the abuse, and people are more informed about what emotional abuse is and how it can then affect a person. The stigma is still there, but slowly people are breaking that stigma.
And that is also very important, because it's not just going to be effort yomuntu yedwa but thina sonke futhi. And Milane, to also bring it back into inkulumo, ngiyazi ke ukuthi sesiklaro khuluma ngokuthi naye just picking up the pieces essentially is a journey for yena. Wena ukuphi njengamanje? Are you at a better space?
Yeah, even better, I'm in a good space, because the good space is about finding you. I had to find that I'm emotionally hurt, and being at Kalilapa, it started from my childhood, as I was explaining, and then I had to do a self-introspection where I found out who am I, when I'm here, what needed to be done, what steps to take, because I had to deal with myself before I can deal with everybody. Remember, I'm a mother of two, and in that case, it means when I'm angry at everybody, and kids know nothing about that. So I had to work with myself, did a self-introspection, and then I started loving myself, because I always tell people this, would love yourself before anybody could love you. Take care of yourself before somebody you say, this person takes care of me. You know, Tina Mantombazana, we like saying, he doesn't take care of me. Do you take care of yourself? Those are the questions you should ask yourself. So hence, we find the very same woman who would love you for work, who will not be with you because you're not working, will be the very same woman to leave you if you're overworking yourself, because we need time. We feel like, you know what, so I've realized in the journey of healing that men are thinkers. They think before they do something. And we women, we are feelers. We feel, we put feelings in everything. So I had to go back and say, Lana, this, you can put feelings here, you think about it. So it's not everything now that you go around and put feelings. You need to think before you put on your feelings.
I think it's also important to go to our victims get to a place or point where they are victors and they become empowered from such situations. After the break in Bugeli, we wrap up our conversations. Ningasuki. Welcome back to Daily Thetha. Namuhla sikhuluma ngama dysfunctional and emotionally abusive romantic relationships. Mqokuthiwa the trauma is not your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. And it's quite important ukuthi we delve into how we can really better move forward in a positive direction in curbing this pandemic. I'd like to call it a pandemic, to be honest. But before we do that, I think it's important to tell audience interaction. So Swam, your opinion?
Mna ndiyacebisa into yobana hense sesivile into yobana ukho izinto ezinje abantu abagqithe kuzo ingathi like sonke siyazi into yobana singenela ntoni kwi-relationship singena si-ready na for ungena kwi-relationship singasuki nemithwalo yezinye relationship sizoyigadlela kwezinye relationship because nathi ndiyabona uba sike sibe zizo ii-cause zobana si-abuswe.
Yeah, and kubalekile nokuthi size nezwi labantu besilisa. Let's just quickly pick up go social media yethu njengamanje ngaphambi kokuthi siphothulele le nkulumo. King Callistus uthi ku Facebook, I've been a victim of abuse, and because I'm a man I had to hide the pain because I wanted to retain the title of being a man. When you get a chance, leave the relationship. And I think before ngaphambi kokuthi siyiwind up, I just want to bring it back to uRefilwe, because uRefilwe, I think there's this thing now ukuthi thina singemiphakathi have directly fed in to lento le ye-abuse esiyibonayo, the cycle ye-abuse le esiyibonayo njengamanje. Uzozwa kwesinye isikhathi abantu abasha bazokhuluma athi umuntu eish mina i-relationship yami toxic and leyo nto le yenza ukuthi ibe mnandi. You know, how do we break that? Because it's time we say this is where we draw the line.
I think most importantly is not using words loosely. You understand? Understanding the meaning of what toxic is, as you mentioned. And there's people where they're like, I want my person to be obsessed with me. Obsession is not healthy. You know, the minute you say you want someone that's obsessed, you must look at yourself. Or why would you want someone to be obsessed with you? That person is obviously going to abuse you, because the minute they get obsessed, they want to control you. They want to know what you do. They want to control how you move and who you interact with. So it's important with us to then not just use words loosely and also not idolize, you know, things such as toxicity and also obsession and indoda must, you know, go all out for me, and if he doesn't do that, then he doesn't love me. That's where then the toxicity starts, and that's where then we promote such things within our community, that if a relationship there isn't toxicity, then it's boring. If there isn't, you know, then it's like, he's not a man. So we need to look at those things and build healthy perspectives of how a relationship should look. A relationship should be safe. You know, a relationship shouldn't have codependency where without this person you cannot live. Each person has to have their own lives outside of the relationship.
Valid point. Pastor Mantsha, what can we do to promote healthy relationships going forward?
You know, education, we should educate each other as a community, but also we must watch our vocabulary. Like if you look at some of the things that they accept, I'll give you an example. You know, this one may be too complex for you, but which means as you grow up, you must see problems. So when you see problems as an adult, you're like, yeah, so it's very important for us, and I think Refilwe also touched on it, that we don't use these bad words loosely, especially when we relate in romantic ways, because a person like, it means reasonable. Sometimes traffic. So some of these things they accept. Actually, a lot of people are in emotionally abusive relationships and they are not aware. They don't know.
Thank you for Mbonako. Closing shots, Isla.
What was
your parting shots?
Oh, okay. Mina, what I would like to say to people is that we must learn healthy relationships are still it's still doable. You can still do it. So it doesn't matter where you are at this point in your life. I think if we can put this in our minds that it's very much important to have relationships that are healthy, and it's possible to have healthy relationships. I think I always tell people that the generation they don't care most of the time. But if we can get rid of that mentality we will still have relationship, and healthy relationship are possible.
Milena, closing shots?
In closing, I would like to say that always be careful when it's time to let go, and if it must say let go, because letting go, it doesn't mean you're a failure, but it means you are starting afresh to a different greener pastures. So tell yourself, this is time for me to let. And sometimes letting go, it's not because of there was no love, but you're not good for each other, and it's okay, because this is life. Just move on. As long as you're going to be happy wherever where you're going, it's okay. So all I'm going to say is allow yourself to say, if I have to let go, let me let go, and let me start afresh. There's nothing wrong with starting fresh.
Njalo nibaluleke kakhulu ke lokho, and Refilo nje sesihamba, I think into engizwile kuClara is ukuthi she had to take from herself first, because you cannot essentially pour from an empty cup. Just moving forward nje khuluma nabantu njengamanje ukuthi how do you move to a stage where you start to build kabusha, so you're able to pour from your cup?
I'd say it's getting to know yourself.
Yeah.
Get to know what it is that you want in a relationship. Get to establish what you can stand for and what you cannot stand for. Also, when you get into a relationship, don't rush to get into a relationship. Get to know that person, you know. As a human being, just because you're not in a relationship, it doesn't mean that you're not complete. Hence, then I said, take time to know yourself, so that when you get into a relationship, you are full and you know exactly what you want and what you expect from the next person, and you are not just compromising just for the sake of being in a relationship.
I think what I've picked up is that there's so much failure associated with letting go, and I think that also bleeds into this issue that we're speaking about today. Pastor Mantsha, your closing shots.
You know, there's nothing wrong with not being in a relationship, and sometimes when you realize that you can't stand up for yourself, don't go into a relationship. You know, you don't want to put yourself in a position where you insist on having this thing at the expense of your life. There's nothing wrong. Whether you are a girl or a guy, it doesn't matter how old you were. I was 42 when I got married, and my marriage is beautiful. It's a marriage of adults. But I remember when I was 23 and married, I felt like, yo. It means I got in Chile. Like, you know, people are busy, third child, fourth child. Then I'm still sitting here, not even in a relationship. Just relax, grow up a little. Some of us grow up a little bit slower. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you. Relax and take your time.
Sibonge kakhulu we pastor, and I think ukhuluma into ebalekile ukuthi take care of self first before ungaqala ukutake care of ezinye izinto nabanye abantu futhi empilweni yakho. Mbukeli ke sibeka la namhlanje inkulumo, sibonge kakhulu nokuthi and participate einkundleni zethu zokuxhumana. Kuze kube ngokuzayo sesiyahamba manje.
Hayi ke nisale kahle.